All right, we are joined today for the first time by Jake Johnson. How's everything going? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. We just had the Minx premiere thing, which I'm not sure what you call a premiere for a TV show, but we showed the first 2 episodes last night, and it was really fun. I'm excited for people to see this show. I think they're going to like it.
This sounds like a bad bit, but I would love if one day like HBO or someone sat the audience down at a premiere for a show, but then showed every episode, and people are like, they showing the whole fucking series tonight? Just like all 8?
We kind of had that last night because we did the pilot, and the pilot, played really well, and then it ended and everybody clapped, and then the logo started again, and they played the first 2. So there was a second of like, how many are we doing?
Let's for those who don't know, Minx, set in the 1970s, a young feminist from Los Angeles, joins forces with a low-rent publisher to create the first women's erotic magazine. Debuts March 17th, HBO. Tell people about it. Beyond just that very short synopsis, what can you tell people about this show?
So, at its core, it's a workplace comedy. It's an HBO Max show, so they're trying to do their version of a sitcom. So there's a story that goes throughout the whole season, but it's about a young feminist who wants to do a magazine called The Matriarchy Awakens about toppling the patriarch, and nobody wants to publish it. And then she meets my character at a pitch fest for magazines, and I'm a smut publisher. I do Milky Moms, I do Giant Jugs, I do Naughty Schoolgirls. And I'm successful. Those magazines sell. So I get a copy of her magazine and I show it to a couple of my centerfolds, and they love the writing. And so I realized that I could make a lot of money off of her magazine if we do a big centerfold in the middle for women, and we show a big old naked guy with a big hog in the middle. There's a lot of magazines to be sold. And so it's about that partnership of a very idealistic feminist who's partnered with the worst partner in the world for her in order to create essentially Playgirl.
That might have been one of the greatest pitches we ever had for a show or project. Mm-hmm. It's like you're talking to one of the most like immature podcasts of all time too, especially in the movie and TV space. So,
yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, it's funny because, I signed on to the show because, I think it's really funny. And I think it's really funny. There's a sequence in the pilot where, and I've never seen this, but she agrees to come on and then we have to cast the centerfold.
It's so funny, that scene. Oh my gosh.
There's a fucking dick montage. And I don't think, and I'm an immature guy, I haven't laughed as hard as a bunch of dudes take off their underpants and showcase their penises. I was cry laughing. I'm like, I know when we were making the show, there's the feeling that this is because it's more about the female gaze. And I go, I think what people in marketing don't realize is how funny dudes find dicks. I'm like, I'm not looking at a naked man and having like questions about if I'm into it or not. Nothing makes me laugh harder than the guy with like a weird looking dick. And so I was just cry laughing reading it. I loved making it. Now I think the show is actually better than I imagined it. So I'm really happy pitching this one because I think people are going to like it.
Is it fun playing a sleaze bag character? There's got to be a little extra juice behind playing a role like that.
It is. Honest to God, I grew up around a lot of these characters. My mother always had junk shops when I was growing up. So I was always around this certain type of guy. And I do feel that this type of guy is always portrayed in one light. That is, he's shady and he sucks and he's one note. And in reality, when you know these people, they're complicated. And yes, they will rip you off, but no, they're not necessarily bad people. They're just shady capitalists. And so I was excited to play Doug because I really like him. And I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a scuzzard. I think he's just a salesman and he's trying to move magazines.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have like a dirty magazine experience growing up? Because I feel like we all have one of those. Well, newer age, probably not, but like I feel like everyone has this.
Yeah. And like in a junior high, when my friends and I first got into playing cards and we were learning to gamble, somebody gambled their Playboy and I won it. And I had to smuggle that Playboy into my home. I was raised by a single mom who was tough, and that Playboy that shit would not fly in my house. She wouldn't be like, oh, a young man exploring his desires. It would not have gone well. So I smuggled that in, kept it in like a hidden drawer, and they had to be like an empty house. But I cherished that magazine.
I think I started off slow with the Sears underwear catalog or something, and then eventually worked my way up to there. This is obviously produced by Paul Feig, who has a very distinct style of like, I would call it like humor with heart. Like it's like a little bit of both for sure. What was your experience like with like something that he's been in, just like his sort of set, so to speak?
Yeah, well, it wasn't really his set because he would, fair. but you're right that it had his tone to it. But he's really great. I mean, what I really like about Paul, like Bridesmaids for me that was a movie that kind of rocked me because I felt like they marketed that movie incorrectly. And when that movie came out, I felt like it was a big comedy for women that I might like. And when I watched it, I was like, no, this shit is for me. This is hard funny. And Freaks and Geeks really knocked me out. So I've been a fan of Paul for a long time. And he's great. He's, really and this isn't to take away from Paul, but the kind of genius behind this one is Ellen Rappaport, our writer. She really understands the world. Her writing is great. And Rachel, our director, is a killer. Honest to God, like it's an easy one for me to sell. I feel like I have a very good vacuum. And all I want to tell people is like, just try the vacuum. I'm going to buy this one.
I like that you mentioned that. I like that you mentioned the writing group for that because I think sometimes with like movies or shows where they have like we'll call it like social justice or empowerment sort of theme or so to speak, like they can kind of lack subtlety and they can feel like a hollow attempt by a studio to like monetize a sentiment. But that's not the case with the show. Like I'm like a couple episodes deep. Like it's very much not the case. So like, how do you think they found the balance for the show?
First of all, I think I've been deep in this junket, and that's a great question because I did not want to be in a show that's a message show. Even though I think the messages are great, I am a feminist. Feminism means equality. If you're not a feminist, you're a wacko. You're talking about, do you believe people are equal to other people? But at its core, we're making entertainment. And I don't think people watch entertainment to learn anything. I think people watch entertainment because they have a really long day of work and they sit down and they smoke a bowl or they have a drink and they relax and they want to enjoy what they're watching. And as soon as you feel like an actor is trying to teach you a lesson, you tune out, or if a writer is. So even though this is a feminist show in its sales pitch, I think it's a workplace comedy about people trying to sell a magazine. And I think it's about this woman who enters a world and it's fish out of water. And whenever it leaned into messaging, I feel like Ellen, our showrunner, would cringe. So like, yes, there's messages in there, but also she works for a white man and he is her boss, but she is the talent. So I feel like when you really dissect the messaging, it's tricky. It's about capitalism and she's talented and it doesn't matter what gender she is. She has a good idea and you could sell units and who cares who it is? You're just trying to make money.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of people say stuff like we would prefer to have more movies, let's say, or more movies or shows that are like not necessarily like they feature feminism or they feature like whatever the movement or messaging is, but it's not about that. You know what I mean? Like that's not the only thing they have to offer. And I think that's very much the case with this show. Cause like you watch, I think I'm about 3 episodes deep in the screeners that we got. And man, like, dude, just super, super funny, really, really like, and I think a lot of heart messaging, like I was saying before with that sort of Paul Feig vibe. And like, just, it's really, really good time. I really enjoyed it so far.
Thanks, Shaq. It's funny. It's funny you say that because I have been, and maybe it's because I'm at my core, I'm more dim than I would like to admit, but I didn't realize that this might even be considered an agenda show because as a dude, when I got the script, I just laughed really hard. And I felt like I got emotional at moments where I felt like I really liked the Doug Joyce relationship. In that pilot, when you get to see Doug's home, I think that's strong writing. You never see those guys at home. And when you do in movies, there's always like 9 naked chicks and cocaine everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these are real people. He sells, Milky Moms. He doesn't care about Milky Moms. He's selling a magazine. So everything about the writing of it, I felt like really dances that line perfectly. And I hope people see it.
Yeah, that was a great moment too in this show too, where like she's like, I wouldn't imagine you living in a place like this, and he's like, well, I mean, I always wanted to live in a place like this growing up, and now I do. It's great.
So that line right there is the reason that I took the part, because there was a few things with like him where like that big scene in that opening diner where he's talking about the shoot and the models and chicks. And I was a little bit like, I'm like, if Doug just keeps going in this one note that he's like the loud, sleazy character, I'm like, I don't want to be that actor who goes from new girl to all of a sudden I don't have a shirt on and I'm saying like chicks. And I'm like, I hate you. You know, like you're not edgy, man. You're on television. Chill out. But when they showed that second half and I got to see that like, oh, Ellen gets it. Like Doug's a real person. And that's when I was like, ooh, I got those like chills where I'm like, ooh, we might have something special. She might be talented. I feel like with putting a show together at times before you say yes, it feels like a free agent trying to like sign on to a team. And I'm like, ooh, we got some talent here. Let's see if we're lucky and win. But I think Ellen's really special.
Minx, HBO Max, 2 episodes a week until April 14th. Yes, reading that right. Which is that's that HBO Max model. I'm thinking like Flight attended that as well. So 2 episodes a week until April 14th. Check it out. We got to talk about some other stuff as well, and we got to bring up one thing, big time. What we've praised since it came out. It's not like we have a unique take on this, and that's Into the Spiderverse.
Yeah.
I mean, did you think when that was even being conceptualized that it would not just be a good movie, but I mean, it is, me personally, Kenjac as well, like that's a probably top 3 comic book movie released, period. Did that ever even cross your mind in this world of 10 million comic book movies a year? Like we're making one of the greatest right now?
Well, you know, what's interesting is, so that one came to me years prior because of Phil Lord sent me an email and said, you know, in other words, I'm paraphrasing him, but I'm writing an animated show and I'd like you to be the lead of it, but you got to audition because you're not quite famous enough where Sony's just going to give you the keys. So I want you to audition, but I really hope you do it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, absolutely. And then the early pages I saw, and I didn't even know it was Spider-Man. It was called Cabin Fever. Once I started seeing what was happening and knowing it was Phil and Chris Miller, I knew with those guys, if they're really invested, they are truly talented individuals. So I knew it was going to be really interesting and really great. I didn't know it was going to hit and be loved as much as it was loved. You know, it might have been one of the things where you're like, well, they made this unbelievable animated Spider-Man movie that a niche audience loves it like crazy. But the fact that it kind of blew up the way it blew up was a total surprise.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lord and Miller too. Did you ever find, and it's funny because they just released a trailer for the new Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and they hit on all the nostalgia points, and they almost did a Star Wars movie, ended up them created differences, didn't do it. Did you ever hear anything from them about that? Like how funny and different could a Star Wars movie from them have been possibly?
Honestly, I didn't hear anything about it. We didn't really get into it. I want to watch their cut so bad. Like, come on, let them finish. Like, you know, I never ended up I'm not into the comic book world. I never ended up watching the final cut, and that's no disrespect to Ron Howard. He's obviously a monster. It's just, I just didn't see it. But if Chris and Phil got to finish a movie about Han Solo, like, I'm going to that movie. But honestly, anything those dudes touch when they really get into it, they are those guys. Like they're that thing. They have that level of talent that in this industry, not many people have. I think in the business, there's a lot of very good. There's very few great, and they're great.
The end of No Way Home, the new Spider-Man movie, they tease Miles Morales. Have you had any thoughts of putting on a live action Spider-Man suit, like more and more now that the multiverse has opened up? Have you thought about maybe fitting into some tights there and doing it live action?
You know, the truth is I really haven't. I would feel a little bit weird if somebody else played 40-year-old Peter B. Parker.
Right.
But I do feel like, you know, I got nothing but respect for Tom Holland. They got the thing going. And I definitely feel like I exist in the Spider-Verse, the animated version. So I've never really, and I'm just being, I've never really given it thought, but this is the first time that if I found out like some 45-year-old heavy-ish white dudes playing Peter B. Parker, I'd be like, who is this fool?
That's good. That's the honest answer. I like that. That's the honest answer I was looking for.
I'd feel sad about it.
We have to ask though. Is there anything that you can tell us? We have to. We absolutely have to ask. And I'm sure you've been asked.
You know you can't say anything, but
we know you can't. But we have to, otherwise people will yell at us. Is there anything you can tell us about the Spider-Verse sequel, Across the Spider-Verse?
I'll be honest, no. And the reason is because everything that we are given is they protect actors from screwing up. So I was not given this. I'm not given the script. You're not given anything. You are given what you do that day, and you can't even take any of the material home. So what I can say is sometimes in a sequel, you do something happens great. And when it's back the second one, it's a whole new team. And you basically went from the varsity team to the junior varsity team because everybody got paid and now they're on to new things. It doesn't feel that way on this one. I feel like from what I'm seeing and the people I'm around, they are very hungry to make some really special stuff. And so I feel I wouldn't be surprised if the second one's a monster.
Also, I feel like when there's a gold statue involved with the first movie, that hype.
Because if it's just financial, if it just did really great financially, critically it was mixed, the fans liked it, then the second one might just be a payday. But we all stood up on that Oscar stage, it happened. So you can't this one go like, it was good.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't win, it has to be like, these are like set the tone.
Do you, coming off Spider-Man a little bit, do you have I have my choice for you, but I'm curious what yours is. And this is a pretty tough question. It's not like you've done one comedy. You have a blanket funniest line you've ever delivered in a movie or a show?
Man,
or even seen to make it maybe even possibly easier. Like one thing you're like, that's the funniest thing I think I've ever said as a character.
I don't. I have people I've worked with, and there's been rhythms that I thought we were really hitting it at that moment together. That I know, like Max Greenfield and I, for New Girl, when we were doing the cookie scene, and we were getting, I got you cookie, all that stuff. And we'd given each other a cookie and we were fighting back, and it created the weird language of New Girl. I was like, oh, that felt like that was that tone perfectly. So it's less for me about a line I delivered and more, there's just been moments and tones where I'm like, man, we were really in that movie at that moment. Because some movies never find what it is. There's funny movies, but the tone is really inconsistent. Actors are doing different stuff. Somebody's really like, look, the best version of that is Caddyshack. Caddyshack has no idea what it is, but it's success. You look at Bill Murray and Rodney Dangerfield, they are in different movies.
Yep.
It works somehow. My favorite is when we're all making the same exact movie, and then there is a moment when we are actually making the core of what that show is or what that movie is. So for Minx, like, I love all the episodes, I really do, but 7 and 8 for me is when that show I feel is fully realized. And so there are just moments where I'm like, oh, I actually think this scene was the fully realized version of the comedic bit of this project.
I like that you tell me that, because I know for a fact HBO only sent us through I think episode 6. So now 7 and 8, I gotta wait, you motherfucker.
Yeah, I gotta wait. And I'm not talking about any. I really like the show, and I've been in stuff that I haven't really liked, and there's still stuff you can sell about it that makes it worth like checking it out. But I think every episode's really strong. For me, when I watched 7 and 8, even when we were filming them, I felt like, oh, this shit is a little different. Mm-hmm. I was like, then for me on the outside is, oh, that is what this show really is at its core. And very rarely do shows and movies ever find what they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
My quick one, I will say it is my favorite line. I'll say scene is you punched a little gay black kid in the face, not even second period, from 21 Jump Street. Because then I think you, Channing, and Jonah Hill went on just talk about chemistry, just a flow in that whole scene that was unreal.
Oh, that scene is when I met Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that line, so Jonah Hill is, and obviously now he's, an Oscar-winning actor, and he's now like one of our best actors. But at that time, he was just the funny guy. He is so funny that in that scene, he would do, I had Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Jonah all pitching me lines and ideas on my coverage where I'm like, man, if I can't hit a shot here, I need to retire. So like Jonah and I are friends. He'd help me get that part. He was very gracious. So when the camera's on me, meaning there's no camera on him and Channing, he would literally go, maybe say this, man. And I believe it was either him or Chris or Phil who said that line about if I hear one more or whatever. I don't remember the exact detail, but a lot of those lines were being pitched to me. And I was laughing before I said them because I'm like, I'm being fed monsters right now.
That's just an awesome feeling.
It's March Madness. We've been doing this lately, so we're going to do a little bracket with you. We have another show where we do brackets each week. We're going to do a best Jake bracket, and you're going to pick the winner of each matchup. 8 Jakes.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. You may or may not be in the bracket too. Here we go. Here's the bracket. First matchup, the 1 versus 8 seed of the Jake bracket. Jake Gyllenhaal against Mets pitcher Jacob deGrom. Better Jake.
Oof. I'll go Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal.
Gyllenhaal moves on. 4 versus 5 matchup gets a little weirder here.
Okay.
Jake from State Farm and then the ska band Less Than Jake.
I'm not a ska guy. Jake from State Farm. I also like that the guy Jake from State Farm is now going to games.
Yes.
And saying to the fans whatever the line is, like get your insurance right. Where I'm like,
yeah.
You. Like
he prompted the fan too. He was like, say it back. Come on. What are you waiting for?
Yeah. You saw the same clip. He finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was wearing like a red shirt. I'm like, oh, he's just living as Jake from State.
Flo from Progressive could never.
Yeah.
3 versus 6. CNN's Jake Tapper against former Panthers quarterback Jake Delhomme. The legend.
Let's go Delhomme. Let's push him through. I remember there was a moment I wanted him on the Bears.
I'm a Browns fan. He was on the Browns once, so
yeah, there was
I experienced.
He might be special.
Mm-hmm.
I had a moment. Here we go. 2 versus 7. This is where you are. You're up against Jake Sully. Do you know who Jake Sully is?
No.
Not many people get this from Avatar.
Oh, okay. You put me at 7. You put a blue character from Avatar over me. God damn. God damn. I'm putting me past Avatar.
All right, here's your final 4. So you're up against Jake Delhomme, then Gyllenhaal against Jake from State Farm. Who comes out on top out of this final 4?
Jake from State Farm moves on.
Because he's going to games in character. I feel like you got to beat Jake Delhomme.
I'm beating Jake Delhomme.
Are you better than Jake from State Farm? Are you the best Jake?
I'm going Jake from State Farm.
Here we go. We did this with Josh Gad the other day, and Josh Gad won all the way up until he played Josh Brolin, then he gave Josh Brolin the win.
I hate to do it, but a lot of times, like even when I'm at a restaurant, when somebody goes like, if I say like a name for the reservation, I go Jake. The amount of times people go from State Farm.
Oh.
Because of his commitment to being Jake from State Farm and going to games. Congratulations, man. You got it.
Congrats to Jake from State Farm. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of rapid fire thing we call it a 6-pack. It's going to be 6 questions. You can give us the easiest answers or the most complex you want. First question, who was the most influential comedian for you growing up?
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley. That's a good choice. Second question, what was your weirdest fan interaction?
My season 1 of New Girl, a couple of teenage girls followed me around a museum, but I hadn't realized yet that I was recognizable. So I thought that they were potential private investigators as little teenagers because they followed me for about 40 minutes and pretended to be looking at their phones or artwork when I would look up at. I might have been stoned, but so
you're just sweating bullets. That's fun.
Like a living nightmare where I would look up and there was these like 3 preteen girls and I'd be like, they're in this weird hallway. And they're in a corner. I'm like, there. And finally I went like, can I help you guys? And they said like, are you on the New Girl? And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, do that 40 minutes ago, guys.
So they're like process servers trying to like get at you or something?
Put a read on why these young women were following me around and pretending not to stare at me.
Okay, next question. You can press a button and get the green light on any project you want with an infinite budget, or press a button and guarantee a Bears Super Bowl win next season? What do you press?
Ooh. I would do the project. God bless the Bears, but I really wanted Brian Flores this year. I thought, even pre-lawsuit or anything like that, I think he's right to do it. God bless him. But I just wanted that energy back in Chicago. I wanted a mean defensive head coach. I wanted just to get nasty in the NFC North. And we got a good, I think our coach could be good. I don't know much about him, but it seems like we went for very smart, nice guy, high energy. And I wanted nasty in Chicago again. And maybe we'll get there because we have talent. But so I gotta go career based. I gotta go Hollywood and make something.
Fair enough. All right. You once worked with Tom Cruise, and we have to ask every actor. This is a big question, by the way. It's huge. We ask every actor who's ever worked with Tom Cruise this question, and it is: did he wear a fake ass in the 2008 movie Valkyrie? Do you know about this? We're gonna show it to you.
Yes. That's for sure fake, and I guarantee that's because he just had to do a big stunt. Hey, what is that? Yeah,
that's him.
You know what that is, guys? So he does all his stunts, and I bet he had to take a huge fall because I did a stunt with him where we fall off a 3-story building together. And when we landed, it really hurt my body. And so afterwards, he said, he's a very caring guy. He's very intense. He's like, Jake, are you okay? Is everything all right? I didn't want to be around the stunt guys because they were all these macho South African dudes. So I went yeah, Tom, actor to actor. I was like, I think something went wrong, man. And he goes, what happened? It looked great. And I go, it really hurt when I hit the ground. And he goes, well, you fell off a building that was falling. That was over 3 feet tall. And I go, yeah, but it actually hurt. And he goes, are you injured? And I go, no, I'm just hurt. And then he put his hand on my shoulder and he goes, of course it's going to hurt. The point is not to get injured. So I think he probably fell on his ass a lot and then probably was protecting his tailbone.
Mm-hmm. It's like his bumper.
That man goes through real bruises.
We're huge Mission Impossible fans. So it's it's crazy.
I thought it was a little bit of a PR fake that Tom does his own stuff. And I kept saying to him while I'd be alone with him, why are we doing this? There's a stunt team. You're a maniac. And he would laugh and he loves it. But I would see him after work. He was beat up. We would ice down like we were in a UFC fight. And then the next day, that maniac is back at it. So I think that is padding and that is not his ass. And that is some weird pillows. And they did not imagine him rolling in that way. Because that
is too big. All right. Next question is: what's a movie that you auditioned for, really wanted, but didn't get? Could be show as well.
I auditioned for Parks and Rec back in the day for Pratt's part. And I knew it was the guys who were coming off of The Office, and it was Amy Poehler, and I hadn't been close to any TV yet, and it was to play a really sloppy guy, and I knew it was going to be a lot of improv, and I thought I actually think I have a shot at this one. And then when Pratt got it and it took off, I was like, God damn it.
Would you have been Star-Lord? Would you have been in the Guardians of the Galaxy and you got that role? Is that your trajectory, your alternate history?
I would have not done those big Marvel movies. No. I would not been 260 pounds of muscle right now either.
You would have been in Jurassic World regardless, though. So, I mean, either way, it kind of worked out in a sense.
Part.
Last question. What's a fast food item you can't live without?
Fries. From which
From where? From where?
Lately, Chick-fil-A fries.
Ooh, waffle guy. Okay.
Yeah. I grew up across the street from a McDonald's, so I was there every day. I've really tried for years to get away from fast food. And now I've got kids, and as we're ordering food, they're entering their stage of fast food. So there's back to being chicken sandwiches and nuggets and fries around. And so in the last 6 months, I've re-entered the world of, holy cow, these dipping sauces are real.
Right. Chick-fil-A has that fake aura of being healthy. It's that's because it's so simple.
Look, I'm a Hollywood actor. I got to take care of this physique. So that fake health goes along. I'm like, can I get the fried chicken? Do you have a whole wheat bun? And then I just sauces. But as Hollywood actor, taking care of my body, so that's what's important.
Thank you so much, man. Minx, March 17th, 2 episodes a week. So you get the binge if you're binge crazy, but you don't have to. You get the week to week excitement as well. All wraps up April 14th. Thank you so much, man. Hopefully, get to do this again.
What a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.